Three, two, one. Here we go. Let's hook it up. Oh no. Okay, folks. Welcome to the Reality Check with Charles Butler. Glad you could tune in. Look, there's a lot going on out there today, as we well know. And if the Democratic Party would be better off if President Trump wins re-election rather than having Bernie Sanders take over the White House, which is not going to happen. I mean, let's be clear. You know, I've often said, for those of you who don't know, that President Trump's going to win by a landslide, and I believe that. Matthews is 74 years old, so he's been around for a while. He brought up the possibility, though, that the centralist Democrats may prefer Trump over socialist Bernie Sanders. Well, there's no question. How could they not? I mean, let's be for real. Socialism doesn't work. Look at Venezuela. Look at the African nations that experimented with neo-socialism in the 60s and 70s. They're decimated. They don't even talk about neo-socialism anymore. I studied neo-socialism in college at University of Michigan. We did it in depth analysis of socialism and Africans and how, if and could, socialism benefit African nations. And the answer came back time and time and again, absolutely not. In fact, a friend of mine, a guy named Rovan Locke, was a grad student studying to get a PhD in political science. And Rovan concluded that, one, Marx was a racist and that neo-socialism would never work in Africa. Now, granted, Rovan had a British education, having grown up in Jamaica, and ran for the Jamaican Olympic teams. He was great guy, great professor to have, because he always said one thing when we were debating in class: do your homework. And that's why I can host a show called The Reality Check, because I do my homework. Chris Matthews, ultra liberal, over at MSDNC, saying that, wait a minute, we may be better off if Donald Trump keeps the White House and Bernie Sanders goes home or stays in the Senate or is defeated or whatever, but we don't need him. So, Chris Matthews, and for those of you who don't know, Chris Matthews hosts a show called Hardball with Chris Matthews, and he was leading a conversation about how centrist candidates were splitting the vote, likely to the detriment of one another and to the benefit of Sanders, which we just saw in Nevada. Sanders cleaned up. Biden was a distant second. This is what Chris Matthews had to say. I'm wondering whether the Democrat moderates want Bernie Sanders to be president, he said. Open quote. That's maybe too exciting a question to raise. They don't like Trump at all. They do want Bernie Sanders to take over the Democratic Party in perpetuity. Question mark. Do they want Bernie Sanders to take over the Democratic Party in perpetuity? I mean, He takes it over. He sets the direction of the future of the party. Maybe they'd rather wait 4 years and put in a Democrat that they like. Close quote. Then he goes on to say, um, and this is from Adrian Elrod, a former Hill there. And Chris, is there that there are people that are concerned, strategists that are concerned that Bernie being at the top of the ticket will force us to lose the House? And I don't necessarily think that's the case. He is going to lose the House. They're going to lose the House anyway. And we'll have Trump as president, McConnell over the Senate, and McCarthy in the House. We'll get rid of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. I tell you, and every time I think of Nancy, I think of her tearing up Trump's speech. I thought that was great on her part. Very dramatic. Matthews has frequently disparaged Bernie Sanders, of course, in recent days, accusing Sanders of being full of it. Well, he is. Socialism doesn't work. And it certainly won't work here in America. We're not going to have it. We're not looking to turn our economic system into well, it won't be a giveaway because you're giving away other people's money and other people will start to lose. Maybe we should all move to Mexico, move our businesses to Mexico, move our families to Mexico or Canada. Just take the country and go zoop and leave Bernie and his socialists with what they have, which will be a lot of empty buildings. Well, you go online and look at pictures of Moscow or any Russian city or Soviet city, especially in the Soviet era. There were numerous buildings that were just vacant and they're all gray. Because you remember, we bombed all that stuff to ashes and the Germans did too. So Europe is relatively new continent in terms of building and structure because it was all decimated during World War II. But, we never really think about that because Hollywood doesn't tell us and it's not in the news and, those things. But we can just leave the country, go to Canada, go to the islands, go to Mexico, head down to the Honduras, go to Colombia, beautiful country, Colombia, Peru, beautiful country. Maybe we should even go to Venezuela and teach them about putting capitalism back in play. Okay. But Matthews said that Bernie would be a miserable president if he got elected because he'd have to account for things. Okay. And Chris went on to predict that Sanders would lose 49 states if he went up against Trump in the general election. Believe me, I don't care who goes up against Trump. Trump will probably lose New York and California. But I tell you, everything else, Florida, Texas, and Illinois, he'll lose Illinois. It's definitely a blue state because all the votes are in Cook County. So you can win the rest of the state, but Cook County takes you out because of the number of people here, like 3 million, 4 million people. Amazing. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Chris Matthews said, I may have my own views of the word socialist. They would go back to the 50s. I have an attitude about them. I remember the Cold War, and I have an attitude toward Castro. I believe if Castro and the Reds had won the Cold War, there would have been executions in Central Park. I might have been one of those getting executed, and certain other people would be there cheering. Okay. He said, so I have a problem with people who took the other side. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. You know, Bernie Sanders, that was Chris Matthews saying that by the way, not Charles Butler. Chris has talked about Bernie negatively for years. It's nothing new. Nothing new. Sanders has repeatedly berated MSNBC executives, especially this week or last week, for what he perceived as unfair treatment from the network. Well, what would Trump get if it's unfair treatment from for Bernie Sanders? Then what are they doing to Trump? They've never given Trump any respect. Oh man, it's amazing. And it's amazing to me that people are even listening to people like Susan Sarandon. What does she know? What office has she ever had? What political science classes has she ever taken? Absolutely few, if any. Now, Mr. Clyburn, Jim Clyburn, who needs to go somewhere and sit down and let some young person take over that seat. But these black guys stay in these seats until they die. It's amazing. They have no respect. They have no vision about bringing up others and allowing them to ride on the back of their contacts. Because when they're dead, all the favors they were owed go with them. They're so stupid. Amazing. But they're not stupid. They know what they're doing, which is nothing. Okay. So Jim Clyburn, who's, I think, fourth or fifth over the Democratic Party, black guy from South Carolina, he warned Sanders that the socialist label will be an extra burden in South Carolina and downstate House races. I mean, really? Come on. My good buddy, Joe Wilson, the guy who yelled out, "You lie." I got a big picture of Joe and I on the steps of the Capitol shortly after he spoke out against the president and told the truth, I might add, about the fact that illegal aliens and immigrants could use Obamacare. Obama was lying, truly. Oh, it's horrible. He's called out the president because he's a racist and he's from South Carolina. Well, the truth is, Joe Wilson has more black staff in his district offices as well as in Washington than Teddy Kennedy has ever employed, probably. There's zero black folks who worked in Teddy Kennedy's offices. I noticed that. Strom Thurmond, so-called racist senator, had blacks working in all of his offices. Why? Because they were his constituents. Amazing. Anyway, just saying. But I wasn't going to talk about Chris Matthews in this article, but it just became so apparent that it needed to be discussed. It's far too important to pass up because Chris Matthews, after all, is a big lefty. Big lefty. So, speaking of lefties, speaking of loons, the Bloomberg's made a number of gaffes this week, and I just want to play one for you. Let's play this one. Wow. That's the Democrat who ran for mayor his first term as a Republican because it's the shorter line. Then once he got in office, he said, well, I'm an independent. Then after his second term, he said, I want a third term. And the charter of the city of New York said you can only have two terms. Giuliani wanted a third term because 9/11 had just happened. They said no. But Bloomberg pays off the city council, right? They all vote to give him a historic third term. True story. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. As far as stop and frisk, the reason I'm talking about this is because I'm having a debate with a friend who lives in California. And he lives in a very exclusive neighborhood, a very nice neighborhood. His kids went to private schools. The public schools in his area are excellent schools, but his kids went to parochial schools, and that's great because that's a choice his family made, and they could afford to do that. But we're arguing about stop and frisk, and he starts talking about the Constitution and that it is unconstitutional to stop and frisk people. Well, I can tell you this. The people in those neighborhoods were not complaining about stop and frisk because the people who being stopped and frisked fit the profile that Mayor Bloomberg just stated. The people who are committing the crimes are black and brown men between the ages of 16, I'd say 13, and 35. And people will try to make a case for that. Oh, we can't handle. If you look like a criminal, you act like a criminal, then I'm going to treat you like a criminal. I always say you are what you dress and act like. I'm not going to take you at any difference. You may be fronting, trying to be tough, but at the end of the day, it puts me on point that you are a bad person. I'm not going to take the time to get to know your attitude or your personality or the fact that you may be a good kid. If you look like a thug, I have to treat you like a thug. And that's what the police do. My godson, who's a great kid, come from a well ran home, mom, dad, lot of love, best schools. His father was one of the first black men to graduate from Harvard during the 60s, Harvard Law. And just one hell of a guy. And his son is one hell of a guy. But he's going to Columbia Law School, and he's out of the campus area, and he's going to his apartment, and he has his hoodie on. It's late at night. Cops pull him over, stop and frisk him. Wait, where you going? What's the bag for? Yada, yada, yada. And he said, if I had known my rights, he's an attorney now, very well-heeled attorney. He said, if I had known my rights, I could have defended myself better. I said, but what would you have done? I mean, did you not fit the profile? Young, black, around college students who were susceptible to being robbed, et cetera, et cetera. He said, yeah. But see, that's the penalty black men always pay for the politicians, the pastors, promoting that somehow we're all the same. All black men are equal. We should be treated equal. No, we shouldn't. I'm different than a guy who's a thug, a drug dealer. Now, if you're a law-abiding black man, you're grouped into this bigger or this small group of people because black pastors and black politicians are trying to protect criminals. That's the bottom line. See, what's his name? The black guy. Dinkins. Dinkins could have probably gotten away with stop and frisk because the crime went down. Black and brown neighborhoods were very happy, and white neighborhoods were ecstatic. Let's be clear. I mean, Manhattan, I wasn't scared to walk around Manhattan during stop and frisk, during the Giuliani years, during the Bloomberg years. But I can tell you, being in New York in the 70s was a scary proposition, especially if you were out of the Manhattan borough. Okay? You don't hear the people who live in those neighborhoods complaining. You hear the community activists, you hear the politicians. But let me go back. Let's take this a little further. Let's go back to when people were fairly common sense. The Supreme Court ruled on a case called Terry versus Ohio. And they ruled 8-9 that an officer could stop and frisk a suspect. And oh, by the way, if he found a gun, that could be used as evidence against you. But you say, okay, so if I'm black and I'm young, I'm pulled over. I was pulled over numerous times because I was black, had a Porsche, and it had to be bought with drug money. So that may be an improper use of stop and search or whatever. But you have to start somewhere. And if you're going to stop this crime. Now, this case, Terry versus Ohio, was a landmark case that the Supreme Court ruled on in 1968. And Thurgood Marshall, a hero of mine. In fact, for those of you who are listening podcast, I'm holding up a copy of a special edition of Thurgood Marshall. It's called Visionary. And it's called The Remarkable Life That Sparked the Movie. I saw the movie last year. And Thurgood was just a hell of a cat. This is his Brown versus Board of Education. And, you know, the outside was they never felt that they would get black schools funded. And that's why they pushed for integration. But I don't see integration as being any panacea by any means. The High Court, Thurgood. Thurgood was also Solicitor General for Johnson, which is the president's attorney, by the way. I love Thurgood. I thought he was a great guy. Great guy. Vernon Jordan. I mean, this little piece right here was money well spent. It's called the Special Edition Time Magazine, Thurgood Marshall, the Visionary. But even Thurgood ruled with the majority in Terry v. Ohio. Why? Well, it's easy. The significance was that search and seizure did not violate the Constitution's or the Fourth Amendment protection of unreasonable search and seizure. The court ruled on that. And why is that important? Well, it's important because, as I said earlier, you have to start somewhere. If you profile a guy, and see, we in the black community need to call out these thugs, these criminals, these hoodlums, instead of talking about Pookie. Yeah, Pookie's a good boy. My grandson's a good boy. He was turning his life around. That's what they always say. That's when you know the code word was. That's a code word for my grandson was in the game. He was out there in the streets. He was turning his life around. Yeah, well, where was his life going in the first place? Oh, man. So we fast forward to these liberals, and I always say that liberalism seems to be related to a person's distance from the problem. So if you're not worried about these thugs hitting you in the head, taking your phone, taking your wallet, raping you, raping your wife or your daughter, then you all against stop and frisk. Why would anybody want to participate in that? Why are you doing that? Well, like I said, if you'd been exposed to the crime, you would too. You wouldn't be opposed. I tell you. But look up the case, Terry versus Ohio. Great case. The case is about 52 years old now, but it's the underbelly of the stop and frisk, which was ruled illegal by a bunch of liberal justices, but they'll rule different when something happens to them or their families. That's the way it is today. These people have no common sense, no vision. They don't care about the common man. They don't care about law-abiding citizens. Their emphasis is on protecting criminals because they didn't have a chance. They didn't have a daddy. I get so tired of hearing that crap. And black folks are tired of hearing that crap. So anyway, speaking of black folks and voting, black folks and social political issues, I want to stop for a minute and discuss an issue that has always been clear to me, and that's voter suppression. I remember Eric Holder arguing about voter ID laws. And there was an Arizona law. It's only about maybe 8 pages. And Eric Holder was testifying about the ID law and how it was racist and discriminatory. And someone asked him the important question: have you ever read the law, Mr. General? And he said, to my surprise, no. It's a short law. I read it. I didn't think it was racist at all. And I think that this voter suppression thing is all poppycock. I have a better term, and my term is bovine. That's the term that I use. So I want to play this little clip for you that now I'm going to set the stage for you for this interview. Wall Street Journal video interview. They pulled this guy goes to Georgia. The people he interviews are about 40 miles south of Columbus, Georgia. So they're on the east side of the state in a college town called Fort Valley, where Fort Valley State is. And for those of you who don't know anything about Fort Valley State, that's the college that Jerry Rice went to, the receiver on the 49ers. And, he set all these NCAA records as a receiver. So the quarterback had to have set NCAA records also. But because he was black, he never got a chance to try out for quarterback in the pros. In fact, most people don't know who he is. And I have to admit, I didn't look it up before I came on the show, and I can't remember who he is either. But I do want to set this stage for you because this is key to how black people are going to vote in 2020, which is going to mean that Donald Trump is going to win in a landslide because he's going to move that needle among black voters about 8%. So I think people say he got 12% last vote, and I'm suspect of that number. And those of you who listen to the show, you always know why. But I think he's going to get about 20-25% in the black vote. Okay. So you're going to listen to this video and you're going to hear black people saying things that you would never hear on mainstream radio or TV? And the answer is why? Because all of those people have drank the liberal, socialist uh, Kool-Aid, for lack of a better term. Black, white, whatever. Oh, black people wouldn't know how to vote if a D wasn't on the ballot. Eric Holder actually sued a city, a black city, for eliminating parties on their ballots. True story. The city is called Kinston, Kinston, North Carolina. Look it up. And, I'm often a real stickler about that. I always say, look things up. Don't pay attention to what I said. Look them up for yourself. Now, right now, we're going to play this question that the reporter is asking these people. Now, granted, 8 black people, 2 students, 1 male, 1 female. There's a black man who's older, a Vietnam vet, kind of brainwashed, a real Democrat. Then there are 3 Republicans, 1 male, 2 females, and 1 guy who's definitely a Democrat who's leaning Republican. This is good. Check it out. Here we go. See, so this was unique in itself, this interview. It's unique because what, 90 some percent or 90% of blacks vote Democrat? How dumb can they be? I always say politically unsophisticated because people get a little upset when you call all these people a dumb. So let's keep on with the interview because it's real interesting. Okay. So it's very clear and it's very good that these things happen. Like the guy said, I want a bull in a china shop. I was tired of Barack Obama and his girly man ways. Now, this guy who was speaking is a former Iraqi, Afghanistan veteran, middle-aged black guy in his 30s, I think. So let's continue. Let's see here. So I'm going to continue with these black voters because it is so interesting what they're talking about. Now, watch this guy tip in talking about political correctness, identity politics. See, people are tired of identity politics. Oh, you think this way because of the color of your skin? No. Oh, you think this way because you're on food stamps, or you think this way because you're in the college or you're in the ghetto or whatever. It's identity politics. People see through it. Nobody's talking about that. I am. That's why you're listening to The Reality Check with Charles Butler. Here we go. Now, even this liberal, and this lady is very liberal, and she even thinks that political correctness has gone too far. Why? Because when white people talk about diversity, they talk about white women and gays and lesbians and the whole alphabet people. And they talk about the foreigners and immigrants. Black people ain't talking about that. We're trying to get ours still 400 years after getting here. Black people are still excluded. Trump is making a big difference. Believe me. Let's go ahead. Let's continue. Here we go. A pro black conservative. Wow. Cross eyed, I've seen that many a time. But the thing that folks are trying to rally around is that somehow black people are being discriminated against because of voter ID laws. Let me tell you this. I can remember as a boy, and this is going back to the late 50s, because I remember sitting down watching the Kennedy Nixon debate in black and white. And my parents telling me that Kennedy was going to be good for the Negro and it was going to be good for us and things are going to be better in my lifetime. Little did they know. Because 2 years later, this was 60, 2 years later, we moved to Pontiac, Michigan, to an integrated neighborhood. Well, by integration, they mean 3 or 4 black families. And we caught hell from some people. Let's be clear. But so I'm going to play this clip on voter suppression. But the point I want to make is I can remember back in the late 50s very clearly. My father worked midnights because he had like 6, 7, 8 years seniority. He had moved to, what do you call it? Afternoons yet. So he worked midnights. That's what, 11 to 6 or 7 in the morning. And he always voted. So he got up, went to vote, came back, took his nap, and, got ready to go to work. But he always voted. My dad was a vet, World War II vet, Navy vet. Love him dearly. Taught me a lot. Taught me how to be a man. So let's play voter suppression. And then when he worked afternoons, he always managed to vote. He had to go to be at work at 3, got off at 11, so he wouldn't vote between that time. What's wrong with that? So we're going to play this clip on voter suppression, which I don't support or believe in. And I was telling you that story about Eric Holder and the Arizona law. No, I didn't read it. Why are you talking about it? How you know it's racist? He's just lying. But this is the same attorney general that tried to get terrorists out of Gitmo, who he and Obama tried to make our military police officers and have policing power. A warrior doesn't have policing power. He goes into a building to kill people. He doesn't go in to question them. He doesn't go in to shake hands or find out what's going on. He's going in to kill people. That's what war is. It's not a policing action. No wonder so many vets are killing themselves, and they hate Obama. Let's be clear. The military, especially the operation side, they hate Obama, and I don't believe them. I don't blame them. I always say that Jimmy Carter can transition because he no longer has to prove every day that he wasn't the worst president. That honor belongs to Barack Insane Obama. Voter suppression. Here we go. Wow. So you go early or you go late, but you get to the poll. That's the point. That's the point I was making with my dad. He worked 3 different shifts. He always managed to vote. He and my mom. Seriously. Let's go. Wow. That's great. That's great. See, that's where I am. I don't think we should have a holiday though. I think that people should get out there and vote. So let's play this little clip and want to get a couple of these in. Well, the deal is the young man forgot to register. And Georgia, I guess, doesn't have you can register at the poll or voter day or vote day or whatever, election day. We have that here in Illinois. It's ridiculous. And no voter ID. So you could be Bobby Scott or you could come. I mean, it's ridiculous. Totally. Here we go. What am I going to play? Let's see. Oh, okay. Voters against criminal justice reform. Let's play that. Well, see, you don't hear these kind of arguments, these kind of positions being put forth in mainstream media. The question is why? You heard the young professional or the lady who's a little older. She's a professional. She said, I work in a forensic lab with these people. Recidivism rate is high. That's what I talk about all the time. These are criminals who are gaming liberal blacks and whites into somehow, accepting them and accepting their behavior. Amazing. Well, I know, and we know black people who haven't had a first chance. Hello. Hello. Um, that's enough of that. But I just wanted to share with you that all black people don't think alike or the same. And they certainly don't coalesce in the Democratic Party. You saw this one Democrat man, you heard this one Democrat, black man, who said, I'm voting for Donald Trump. He's doing a good job. Sorry. Love it. I want to segue right now into Liz Warren talking about Bloomberg and his non-disclosure agreements with females in his company. Why are people always trying to undo things that people have legally agreed to do? Like with Bill Cosby, the woman that sued him, she had agreed to be quiet. She got paid $2.4 million. But I guess that wasn't enough because Camille had 4 or 5 million. Camille is Bill Cosby's wife. Okay. So let's play this clip with Warren. She's all over Bloomberg and he looks like a deer in headlights. Let's play it. Wow. Did she put him on point? Horrible. Absolutely horrible. And Bloomberg, his people didn't prepare him for that. Why is he paying him? Pay me. I'll get you ready, Mike. Oh man, too amazing. But Mike is getting support from some avenues that even surprised me. Sam Donaldson had this to say. Listen. Wow. Bloomberg can beat Trump. That's Sam Donaldson, the guy on ABC. I love Sam Donaldson. He was a great reporter. And he said, hey, I'm a liberal. I tried not to be liberal in my reporting, but personally, yeah, I'm a liberal. So he's supporting Bloomberg. But the guy who really surprised me this week has been Clint Eastwood, my hero. No, I'm just kidding. But Clint came out in Variety, and those of you who are watching on YouTube and Facebook, you'll see I'm holding up a Variety article. And it says longtime Republican Clint Eastwood is pulling support from Donald Trump in the 2020 election. In an interview with Wall Street Journal, the actor signaled that he thinks a different candidate would be better for the country. Okay. So I have, and by the way, Clint didn't endorse Donald Trump during the 2016 election. He didn't endorse Hillary Clinton. And he said, much funny business on both sides of the aisle. He praised Trump at the time because he was onto something. And secretly, everybody's getting tired of political correctness and kissing up. Well, we are. And he also went on to say, this is Clint, we're a PUSSY generation. Everybody's walking on eggshells. We see people accusing people of being racist and all kinds of stuff. When I grew up, those things weren't called racist. Now he's changed his tune a bit on Trump. Okay. So, wow. Amazing. But I tell you, I didn't watch the movie Richard Jewell because I was so angry, and it opened wounds where they accused this man of killing this black woman, and that's all you heard. Uh-oh, you can't hear. Oh, I'm sorry. Can't hear. What? Here we go again. God dog it. Sorry. Oh, man. I thought I had rectified this situation, but guess not. Dang it. Well, I hope it's broadcasting over on. Man, this is killing me. Makes me so angry because it kills off my listenership. Shoot. Let's see over here. Well, I'll just have to play it at the end. Doggone it. But I am going to have the podcast up on SoundCloud. So you can go to SoundCloud, Charles Butler. It'll be up there. Let's see. So Clint, I have the Wall Street Journal ad or article right here in opinion. And you can see I highlighted a few things, few bullets. It says he's a man who's been through a lot. He's talking about Harry Callahan. But Clint played golf with Trump and Steve Wynn out in Vegas. And he had some interesting stories to tell about that. But he also talked about how Bloomberg, he said he admires Bloomberg and his uh, being in touch with the people. I don't think Bloomberg's in touch with people, to tell you the truth. And, in this article, it really didn't talk that much about politics, even though the heading says a Hollywood legend talks politics. The politics was primarily about his 2-year stint as the mayor of Carmel and what he did there. Not so much about Trump and Bloomberg and the rest as we thought, but he was pretty succinct about just dealing with the fact that he thought Bloomberg was the better candidate. He didn't go into any great detail. Um, so, like I said, in this lead up, they talk about the actor director who's almost 90 weighs in on Bloomberg, Trump, Me Too, and the disputes over a reporter's depiction in his latest film. Okay. There's more donated to that than there is to Bloomberg, Trump, or Me Too. It's interesting. Very interesting. So, anyway, I hope that you guys are able to hear me out there on YouTube because I know that they're not picking this up on the um, Facebook side, which really ticks me off. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Jesus. Anyway, so I'm going to get ready to tie up things in the show. But like I said, Clinton didn't have a lot to say, that he's just supporting Bloomberg over Trump. And he's not, in 16, it was about PC. And I guess he thinks that Trump's crossed a couple of lines. And maybe he has, but, at the end of the day, that's what some of us wanted. Anyway, we're going to play a little satisfaction and get on out of here, because I had a great deal of satisfaction until I heard you guys weren't able to hear the show on some of the stations. Yeah. Okay. So we'll end the stream. I got to go out and